Eddie, welcome to the Aussie Woodworker. Thought I'd do a bit of a review on the way that I assembled my table saw and why I didn't follow the manual that it came with. You're going to be putting one of these things together, whether it's this model or a similar contractor saw where the motor hangs out the back. You're going to want to watch this video. The tips I'm going to show you you're going to find very useful and going to stop a lot of frustration. So hang around and we'll get into it. So just give you a quick background and reason why I decided to buy this particular table saw, contractor saw. Fell within my budget, which was around $1,200. This was just below that. It's back in 2015. Started to think about seriously buying one. So I thought I'd do a bit of research and see if I could find some reviews on the net regarding this particular model. And at the time I could only find one, which was done by a guy called the Woodfather. And about probably 12 months later, which ended up being about a week after I assembled my saw, a guy called Downunder Woodworks put out a video of him actually the way he went about step by step how he set up his particular saw, which is the same as this. And just recently, a couple of months ago, a guy called Hollist has put one out, the way that he put his together and any issues that he came across as well. At the time that I put mine together, I wasn't making YouTube videos, so I have no video footage of it, unfortunately. So what I'll be doing with this review, it will be, from what I can remember, the way that I did it and the reasons why I did it, and the bit of planning that I did before I started assembling the saw. So it's branded a Hafco, which is sold by a company called Hafco in Australia. Models what's called an SB12. It will accept up to a 12-inch or 300 mil diameter blade. Has a 3 horsepower motor mounted off the back, and also the arbor is long enough to accept dono stack if that's what you want to put on at any time. Excuse me. The first thing I did when I unpacked the unit, I read the manual. It was the first thing that I did from front to back before I decided even start trying to assemble anything. And then I put a bit of a plan together in my head, what I needed to check as I went, because the manual is pretty basic, doesn't cover a lot of things. I found the diagrams and drawings more informative than the actual written description. So after decided and knew what I wanted to do, the first thing I did was I took the main cabinet and the cast iron top out of the box, and they come together. You don't have to do anything there. And it comes in that cabinet comes the trunnions already mounted on there with the electrical switch just tucked in there. So the first thing I did was I cleaned the wax off the top, the cast iron top here, just with methylated spirits in a spray bottle, a couple of rags. Took 5 minutes. It was nice, easy, wasn't hard to do. So the next thing I thought what I would do is I would check a few things with the saw before I assembled it. I thought that would make it a lot easier rather than try and do it later when access to inside this cabinet is pretty limited. So first thing I did was I put the blade on, and what I wanted to do was check to see if that blade was parallel with the miter slots. Luckily mine was spot on. But the guy at Downunder Woodworks has put one of these videos out here. His was out a little bit, by how much I can't remember, but he had his saw assembled, completed, and then found that he had to adjust the trunnion. Now to do that means you've got to loosen off 3 of the 4 bolts. To do that, you can get to the ones at the back, but you take the motor off to give you better access. And you have to get into one of these at the front here. Now that's pretty hard to get in there. There's really no front access. It's only through the bottom at the front. I'd hate to try and do it that way after you've got it assembled. Realise that you need to move the trunnion around to get your blade in line with your miter slot. Whereas if you've got to make an adjustment, you're best off doing it while you've still got the main cabinet separated from everything. You can roll the cabinet over onto its side from underneath looking at side on, you can get into all those bolts, do that adjustment that you need to do before you get to the end final stage, and then you've got it. You can do it, but it's just awkward. It's a lot easier if you do it early on. So once you've got your blade set up to parallel with your miter slots, the next thing I checked on my saw was to make sure that the blade was at 90. I was off a little bit. Once again, rolled the saw over on its side, made the adjustment on the bolt that it hits up against to get it to 90. Once again, can do it now at the end when you've completely finished everything. But to do that, obviously, you've got to take the blade off, make your adjustment, put your blade back on, test to see if it's at 90 again. It's not quite there, take the blade back off. Frustrating and annoying. A lot easier, you can leave the blade on, tip it over on the side, make the adjustment on the bolt, wind it back to 0 or 90, test it with your square. A lot easier to do it at the start rather than at the end. Exactly the same thing as the 45, check your 45 and any other degrees that you want to check it, calibrate your gauge at the front while you're at it, get that all spot on. So with those three things done, the next thing you really probably want to decide on is whether or not you want to do anything about dust extraction. If you have a dust extractor, you're obviously going to want to hook it up. If you haven't got one, you might be thinking of buying one in the future. Now's a good time, once again, where you've still got that cabinet separated from everything, sitting there on its own, whether it's on the floor or on your bench when you're working on it, is whether or not you want to seal up this cabinet there. There's just basically one open box. The back plate that came with this, I don't have this on there anymore because I've built a cabinet on the back to improve the dust collection. But basically this is what you have on the back. This is the sort of opening that you end up with, that your dust extractor's got to try and cope with this size opening in the back of the saw, and not to mention also the gaps that are in between the top of this cabinet and the underside of the cast on the top. On this model, it's about 30 mil. So I decided I wanted to seal all that up, get it as tightly sealed as I can before I went any further. So I got myself some black rubber, about 40 mil by 40 mil from a rubber supplier that I know. Some double-sided tape, stuck some double-sided tape onto the rubber, and then put it onto the cabinet. Doing it now, you can do it at this stage, but you're going to be down under here, trying to poke it in up there, trying to get it in there, making sure that it's sealed up right. It's dark under there, you can't see, you're going to be poking a torch under there. Once again, the tip is, while you've got it separated from everything else at the very beginning, flip it over, right, take the blade back off obviously, flip it back over, do whatever you need to do, carpet on the floor, sit up on the bench. Then you can work on it upside down, get it all sealed up underneath that top perfectly the way you want to. Other parts that I sealed up, because this cabinet's pressed metal and it's cut on the corners to be folded under, when you look in the cabinet from the back you can see daylight through there. I just stuck painter's tape on the corners. Those gaps are about 30 mil long by about 3 mil wide. Tape on there and just siliconed over those little openings. The other part that I sealed has a base plate underneath the motor, underneath the cabinet, sorry, which has got the 100 mil port in it for your hose. Just took to that with a what's called a door seal, self-adhesive door seal, foam seal. You would have seen them around, go around door jams, window openings, keep the draft out. Put that one of those on all the way around there, make sure that fitted well to the cabinet. So once I had the cabinet basically sealed up the way I wanted to try and improve the dust collection, the next thing you want to do is decide, well, especially with this model, other models could be different, but with this model here you want to decide whether or not you want to put this thing on. This is a pretty large blade guard with a splitter and some anti-kickback coils on it. I didn't put this on, so I attempted to put it on, and I thought, well, I'm going to be making a zero clearance plate anyway. I had plans on making those plates straight away with a fixed splitter on the back of the plate. That was the first thing that you saw cut, was actually the kerf in one of these. That was the first thing it cut. It's got a bit of aluminium plate on the back there which matches the kerf of the blade. And I made quite a few of these, depending on the height that you're cutting at the time, to which plate you put on. But you need, at this stage, you need to decide whether or not you're going to be putting this on. If you are, I suggest if you're going to decide not to put the blade guard on, I'm not suggesting anybody to operate their machinery without proper guards on. If you do so, you do it at your own risk, and you're going to have to live with any consequences if something goes wrong. So at a minimum, at least if you're not going to put the guard on, take the guard off and just put the splitter on. No one likes any sort of kickback. If you had kickback, you'll never want it again. To put this on, it's mounted on the back of the trunnion, 2 bolts. In the manual, you get to about this stage when you're nearly finished, everything else is put on, they tell you to put this thing on. The way that you've got to put it on, obviously, at this stage, is down through here. Bolts on the back of the trunnion, 2 bolts. To do that, you take the blade off, obviously, so get your hand in there. Drop this on the 2 bolts, finger tighten up the bolts so they're just snug. Put the blade back on, line the splitter up with the blade, take the blade back off, tighten the bolts up, put the blade back on, check if you're straight. And let me tell you, when you put one of these things on, slides over the bolts, as you tighten these bolts up, just the friction of the bolt turn slides this thing over and back and forth. So I got pretty frustrated trying to put it on, so I gave it the flick. But if you're going to persist with it, the best time to do it is when this thing's, once again, solely on its own. You tip it over on the floor, onto its side. Give you plenty of access from underneath. Get those 2 bolts on. You can leave the blade on, you're not taking the blade on and off. So leave the blade on, make your adjustments, get that splitter lined up perfectly with the blade. So basically, once I had the, well, I didn't even bother keep going with the blade, with the splitter or the blade go. But if you decide to put that on, once you put that on, really the next thing is to put the motor on. Just slides on the back. There's 2 bars coming in the back of the trunnion. Couple of grub screws, Allen keys, hold that on. One thing that they mention in the manual is what position that sits on those bars, whether it's back, forward. There is 2 indentations on the very start, about 10-15mm backing from the front edge of those bars. I assume the grub screws fit was intended to go into those indentations. That's why I set my motor up anyway. Next thing, real important thing you want to check, is going to obviously limit the amount of vibration you're going to get with these things, to make sure that your 2 pulleys are in line. So your pulley on your arbor, pulley on your motor are perfectly in alignment. In the manual from this sort, zip. Don't mention anything about that. Just poke it on, whack the bolt on, put the bolt cover on. No mention of something really important like that. So you're going to want to check that. The way I did it, I had a bit of straight hardwood that I'd run over the jointer. You want to make sure that you're flush and hard against the arbor pulley. You're not just on one edge of it and cocked it, because you've got the straight edge cocked out a little bit. Make sure you're nice and even, flush across the front of that pulley with your straight edge, and then measure. Got to be a bit like an octopus. Measure, how far you're off. This thing was 8mm off from the factory. Just a matter of undoing 4 bolts on the bottom of the motor that mounted to the bracket. Slide the motor over. Obviously tighten it all back up. Check, make sure you're right. Once I got that set up, obviously, the belt went on. At that stage, I didn't have the box enclosure on the back, so I put the guard on, blade guard on there. Then step from there was to put the 2 wings on. Didn't have any dramas there. I noticed Downunder Woodworks, when he did his, he noticed that his 2 wings weren't the same length, didn't end up flush front and back of the main caster on top. So tip there, you put your wings on, make sure you've got it flush at the front, and if you have to, as the guy from Downunder did, shim your back fence rail to make up for that 1 mil difference that you've got, rather than shimming the front or having the front, you know, all over the shop. So once you get your wings on, you can slide on your back and your front rail, so just do up straightforward, there's nothing complicated about those. Slide on your switch, screw that off. Your fence comes in 2 parts, obviously the fence and the carriage are separate. It's a matter of 4 bolts which slide into 2 slots here. Do them up, put your measurement indicator on, 1 screw. Downunder Woodworks, his indicator was a piece of crap. It's about as thick as my thumb and smudged all over the joint. So he made up his own. You can watch his videos, see how he made his up in case you end up with the same sort of thing. Mine was fine, nothing wrong with mine. They don't mention anything in the manual about putting on your micro adjustment. You may be lucky it might come mounted to yours, mine didn't, just a couple of bolts. Next thing you want to check is make sure that the face of your fence here is flat. Once again, the guy from Downunder, he's a bit distorted, but he's you know, worked out a way of dealing with that, you know, and overcome that problem. As I said, mine's flat, I didn't have that issue. And you also want to make sure that your fence is obviously 90 degrees to your tabletop. And then the final thing with your fence is you want to make sure that your fence is, you know, perfectly in line with the blade, same as your miter slots. Unfortunately, mine was a little bit off, just a little bit. And with this type of fence, obviously, you know, being an entry level contractor saw, you know, it's the bottom of the line as far as fences go. There's no micro adjustment to move this left or right, you know, to get it parallel with your blade. So with mine being out, I thought, well, I don't really want to shim anything off the front here to try and make up for what I need. So how did I come up? Just, you know, pretty straightforward and basic, nothing flash. A couple of bits of electrical tape on this side. This is the side that I needed to shim out. It was just a matter of putting on a couple of pieces at a time, to locking it back down, you know, measuring it, put another piece on if you need, so forth. You get the idea. So that's basically the assembly of it. You know, one other thing that issue that I had was I noticed I had blade wobble. So if I was cutting something, ripping rough sawn timber, don't care. You know, it's going to go over the joint or through the thickness. It didn't really worry. Notice at that stage, cutting finer panel products like veneered MDF. What I did notice is you could see the line marks on the edge of the MDF where the wobble was. So put the dial indicator on it. Yeah, sure enough, you know, blade wobble. Took the blade off, tilted the arbor up to 45, and ran my finger around the collar plate, or I suppose you'd call it, or that the saw blade presses up against when you do the nut and washer up. And I could feel on the inner ring there was some burrs, and a few spots on the outer ring. It's a matter of getting in there with the file, filing it smooth. That improved it a fair bit. Still put the dial indicator back on it after that. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for what I do. If you know these sort of things are going to cause you, you know, you're not going to be happy with your saw, then this saw's not for you. You need to save up or spend more to get a higher level quality piece of equipment. So, you know, what am I happy with my saw? Yeah, I'm happy with it. Yeah, sure, I had to, you know, play around and do a few things to get it the way I wanted to. But I'd buy it again. Yeah, sure. If the $1,200 is all I could afford to buy a saw and I wanted a saw, yeah, I'd buy it and be prepared to, you know, do these little odd bits and pieces that, you know, fine tune it to get it the way that you like it. Got plenty of grunt in it. Once you get it set up the way you want, you'll find that you'll be happy with it. Yeah, so basically, you know, that's it in a nutshell. If you're setting one of these things up, you know, particularly this model in Australia, or even similar, you know, contractor stores anywhere in the world, you know, if you want to seal them up, you want to do these, check these things with your blade where you've got the cabinet on the veil and the roll over on the side, you're going to find it a lot less stressful than trying to do it at the end. Yeah, so I hope you found it useful, and until next time, hooroo.